Summit of Regions and Cities. My name is Karen Coleman. I'm a journalist from Ireland, and it's my great pleasure to be one of your moderators, because you're going to have a couple of us over the next 2 days. And what a wonderful performance there from the New Hellenic Quartet, who performed 13 Greek dances for string quartet by Nikos Skalkatas. And I should really give a mention to the performers. Georgios Demertzis on violin, Dimitris Kiandrakis on violin, Chara Sira on viola, and Angelos Liakakis on cello. Wonderful performance. Now, we've lots to get through, so before we begin the proceedings formally, can I now invite our 6 guests to please come up in this order and take your seats from this way back. Thank you very much. So please, can I welcome Ramon Luis Valcarcel, the President of the Committee of the Regions, Ioannis Sigouras, the Governor of the Attica Region, Werner Hoyer, the President of the European Investment Bank, Evangelos Venizelos, the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister for Foreign Affairs in Greece, Mercedes Bresso, the First Vice President of the Committee of the Regions, Yanis Michalakis, the Minister for the Interior of Greece. So while our guests are taking their seats, we have a few housekeeping duties. Obviously, all mobile phones off, if you would. Well, and silent, because, of course, we do want you to tweet, and we welcome all tweets. Our Twitter hashtag is #EURegions. In terms of interpretation, we're going to have participants who will be speaking in many of the different EU languages, and they will be interpreted for you in many of the different EU languages. I think you have a note of them. And also the debate itself, which we will be holding after we hear from our speakers, will also be interpreted in several different languages. Welcome to those who are listening or watching us on web streaming formats. You're all very welcome. And after we hear from our speakers, we will have hopefully around 30 minutes to get your views and to enable you to ask questions of our participants as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, today's event, which is the Committee of the Regions' 6th European Summit, marks the beginning of an intense 2-day programme. Today, the main objective of the summit is to take stock of the economic recovery of regions and cities, and to see what progress has been made with the European growth and job creation strategy. And tomorrow we're going to look at some of the key challenges and opportunities that are likely to shape the future of the European Union. It's always difficult to do that on stage. But first, to open today's summit, we're going to hear from 2 distinguished guests. And so first, can I invite onto the podium Mr. Ramon Luis Valcarcel, the President of the Committee of the Regions.
Muy buenas tardes, señores ministros.
Good afternoon, ministers, Governor, honourable colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, friends. It's a real honour for me to be welcoming you to this 6th European Summit of Regions and Cities in Athens. I would like to start by thanking Mr. Sigouras, the Governor of the Attica region, for his hospitality and for deploying the resources he's made available to the Committee of the Regions. I'd also like to thank the Greek government for their support, as well as the European institutions, who, such as the European Investment Bank, are always swift to cooperate with the regions and cities of Europe. This summit gives us a unique opportunity to debate the state of the European Union from a regional and local perspective. Furthermore, it is being held at the right time, insofar as it's being held only 2 weeks prior to the spring meeting of the European Council, which will be focusing on industrial competitiveness and the European growth and jobs strategy. The conclusions of our summit will be a source of inspiration to our national governments when they are setting objectives, actions and strategies for the coming months. Indeed, next week we will be providing these conclusions personally to the President of the Council, Mr. Van Rompuy. On top of that, our summit is being held at the beginning of the election campaign for the European parliamentary elections to be held in May. Undoubtedly, the economic and financial crisis has struck a hard blow on European citizens' perceptions of the European project. It's equally true, however, that the crisis is allowing us to think through the model of Europe we want for the future. Above all, learning from the mistakes we've committed in the past. The consequences of the crises have encouraged certain schools of thought who have used this juncture to indulge in facile populist criticism of the very idea of building Europe, thereby trying to erode the project which we fought for so hard and which has provided so many advantages for Europeans. The responsibility to fight against Euroscepticism is something we all share. If our citizens can see a strong Europe which is geared towards the realities of their daily lives, they will never doubt the effectiveness of Europe. Far from it, they will place their full trust in it. Lastly, our summit coincides with the 20th anniversary of the Committee of the Regions. Much has changed since our Assembly of Regions and Cities convened for the first time here in Athens in 1994. This summit will provide us with an opportunity to reassert the maturity we have acquired, which we need to bring some influence to bear on the European political process. However, ladies and gentlemen, our summit is also taking place in the right place. Athens is the cradle of Western democracy, as well as being the capital city of the country which currently holds the rotating presidency of the European Union. Greece has chosen clear priorities for its period of office, coming close to the concerns of our fellow citizens: jobs and growth, territorial cohesion, and greater integration in the Eurozone. I am therefore pleased to welcome the large number of Greek participants at this summit meeting. They are representatives of the national authorities, local and regional government, and civil society. I feel sure that their opinions and experience will enrich our summit's debate, and that altogether we will prove able to come forward with a constructive vision for the future of Europe, which will hold out hope. Friends, in 2010, the European Union proposed a goal whereby, after a decade of coordinated work, Europe should manage to grow in an inclusive, sustainable, smart way. Nonetheless, we have to provide impetus for growth and create jobs in the context of the greatest economic and financial crisis the European Union has ever endured. We are at the halfway point now, and shortly a new European Commission will be assessing the achievements of the Europe 2020 strategy. The Member States will also be adopting decisions to ensure that we can make the best possible use of the second half of this decade. This morning, the Bureau of the Committee of the Regions debated its contribution to this midterm review and adopted the Athens Declaration on the subject mid-term review of the Europe 2020 strategy, a territorial vision for growth and jobs. I'm glad to see that many of our recommendations are in line with the proposals of the European Commission just a few days ago. In particular, the Community Executive has also acknowledged that we, the regions, are key players in the implementation of the strategy and that efforts must be made to get us involved in planning national policy. Our regions and cities are responsible for a third of the public budget and two-thirds of public investment in the internal market. We are implementing European priorities which have the greatest day-to-day effect on our citizens. Here I'm referring to education, health, job creation, infrastructures, and many other items. The new multi-annual financial framework of the European Union will be devoting €366 billion to the cohesion policy over the next 6 years. We will also make the most of other additional resources from major partners such as the European Investment Bank. This will allow us to continue to shoulder our responsibilities. In our debates today and tomorrow, I would call upon you to think about how a shared effort on the part of the European institutions, the national governments, and local and regional authorities can lead us to an intelligent, sustainable way forward, which will integrate us as we come out of the crisis. I wish you all a fruitful summit meeting, and I hope we can draw inspiration from the goddess Athena, represented in the logo of this summit behind me, who also symbolizes wisdom, civilization, law, and justice. Thank you very much for the work you've done and for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Val Parcel. And so can I now ask Mr. Ioannis Sigouris, the Governor of the Attica region, to make his address.
Vice President of the Government, Mr. Venizelos, President of the European Investment Bank, Mr. Hoyer, President Valkoncel of the Committee of Regions, Commissioner Damanaki, Minister of Michalakis, and Minister Grigoratos, ladies and gentlemen, members of parties, members of the European Parliament, members of the Greek Parliament, colleagues from municipal authorities, governors, mayors, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, and guests. This summit for regions and cities begins here in Athens today. We welcome you with great joy, and we welcome you from the bottom of our hearts. We will speak about the major changes that have to take place at the regional and local levels, and we will discuss the various steps that have been made and the steps which will be made in order to bring government closer to citizens. We'll speak about the experiences in the European North, and now, in these ever so difficult times, we're invited to see what role, indeed, the Committee of Regions can play. The crisis, which is confronted by so many different member states, social exclusion, unemployment, poverty, all this constitutes a series of challenges for local authorities and, of course, for the European institutions. In the Europe of 28 member states, we have 28 million people who are unemployed. But Greece is number one on this list of countries with high levels of unemployed individuals. Europe cannot close its eyes to this ever so serious situation. The crisis in Europe is not only economic, it is also a political crisis, an institutional crisis. Never before have citizens expressed their dissatisfaction and lack of trust in the system overall. So the time has come to make a major change, to change the way that we think, to change the way that we act, in order to win back the trust of our citizens. First of all, strategic choices have to be made for a Europe of the year 2020, a Europe of solidarity. Will it be a Europe of solidarity, or will it be a Europe of social exclusion and poverty? Undoubtedly, because of the treaty of the Lisbon Treaty, the Committee of Regions has a very special role to play in all of this, a very special role to play as far as including the citizen in the entire political process. But the necessary legislation is needed, and we ought to stop any further violation of subsidiarity. This constitutes a major impediment and hindrance. The Committee of Regions, with its 20 years of experience in governance at the local level, at the regional level, has an extremely important role to play. Proposals are to be made in the course of these 2 days here, and proposals with specific aims and actions. In the new funding period, 2014-2020, the local authorities are going to play a very important role. We have to put an end to centralization. The Committee of Regions is an institution playing a major role as far as working together with the European Parliament and the other institutions in order to promote regions and cities. And it is only through this type of concerted effort between regions, cities, and central government that we'll be able to achieve what must be done in the years to come. Of course, our contribution to be made is an extremely important one, once again, in order to change the future for the citizens of this continent. Of course, we have to take into consideration the limited means that exist right now, and this particular reality, these dire straits, financially speaking, of course, have reverberations, consequences for the policies that will be adopted and for the implementation of those particular policies. We have to strengthen our position within the European construct in order to promote regions and cities, exert our effort on Council, Commission, work together with the Parliament. I think that one of the most important issues is the institutional aspect, the new institutional framework which will have to be established in order to resolve the various challenges that we confront. Finally, one of the most important issues that we have to deal with is winning back the trust of our citizens in this experiment, in this effort to achieve a truly integrated Europe. A systematic effort is going to have to be made. Interventions of an organized nature at the local level, at the regional level. We have to make our presence all the more felt in order to achieve real integration. The Greek representation here hopes that this meeting will make our dialogue more profound, that we'll be able to pose important questions and perhaps respond to those. In the 3.5 years since the new administrative structure has been introduced in Greece with elected governors, major changes have taken place. Major changes, proof of these can be seen in the reforms that were presented this morning. Now the new system of governors, of elected governors, provides hope for the future as far as an example, a concrete example it is, of the involvement of the citizen in the entire process. Governance, in other words. Governance, however, of citizens and with elected officials and at the local level, something which we didn't experience in the past. We have responded effectively to the various demands that have existed. We have met all of the obligations within the remit that we have as local leaders. Numerous different infrastructural projects have been initiated at the local level, and of course numerous different social projects, creating jobs, providing protection for the more vulnerable in our society. A breath of fresh air in these ever so difficult times for our citizens. Greek local authorities have borne the winds, the storm of this crisis, but we remain standing and our institutions strong. I'm certain that this particular new start, beginning here with this summit, will create an environment of greater hope for the future, hope for our citizens. Finally, I would like to thank the Committee of Regions for having taken that decision to organize this summit here in Athens, an opportunity for us to share valuable experience and to carve a future, a course into the future, a course which will be marked by great success indeed. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sigouras, thank you very much for that. Now it's time for our keynote speakers to give their views on some of the topics